I found this thing that nobody else is seeing, and like I can capitalize on it. Once you have bots for the short tail, you know, you're doing uni arbs and stuff. I think that's where most people gravitate because the payoff is, you know, orders of magnitude higher.
GM everyone, my name's Tagachi, the host of Scraping Bits, and today I'm with Brock Smedley from Flashbots. How's it going?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We've had a few chats before, but it's good to have them recorded now, and I think this will be pretty good. I don't think a lot of people from Flashbots do podcasts in general, right? So
yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah, some people do it, some people don't. But this is your first one, right? I'm hoping.
Yeah, I think it is.
Let's go. Yeah, just for the people that don't know who you are, then who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm an engineer at Flashbots. I've been here for almost 2 years. So started in the MEV Geth days. My official title is Searcher Experience Engineer, but it's like completely made up. So it's basically
experience.
Yeah, it's like mostly user experience and like prototyping for new products. So I've worked on a lot of different projects at Flashbots, just kind of go between teams and help out and just do fun shit.
What were you doing before you joined Flashbots, though?
Yeah, before I joined Flashbots, I was working at a company that I joined right out of college, and I was hired to work on a project called Forte. Okay. So like we were like a little development shop in like a small college town in Oregon. So we like contract out to Forte. And whoever else, would hire us. So I worked on that for like a year and a half. If you haven't heard of Forte, it's like a NFT management platform for various blockchains. So it's like their application is directed at games that want to do like on-chain, collectibles or game items or, stuff like that. But yeah, I worked on that for like a year and a half. And like in the last few months that I was there, I got connected with Santiago, who was working at Open Zeppelin at the time, and they were looking for somebody to help out with a white hat mission. So like, somebody had some tokens stolen, and they like had some sitting in the wallet that like the scammer hadn't taken yet. So they wanted somebody to help out recovering this, and like Santiago was saying I should use Flashbots to do it. So he was like the first one to introduce me to it, and like he had done a couple of these before, so he showed me the ropes and like reviewed my code. We pulled that rescue off and wrote a little like blog post about it. Shared it.
So how did you really do the rescue though? Because was that like your first time ever doing that, or?
Yeah, it was.
What was that experience like? I don't think a lot of people get to experience that. So.
Yeah, it was really cool. I hadn't been exposed at all to Flashbots and like MEV or like private mempool technology in general. So I was very used to this mempool paradigm, and I was like racking my brain like how do we pull this off? And then like Santiago had a script that was like basically done, just had to be refactored for the specific tokens and account that we were recovering. So like the coding bit wasn't very hard. It was more, am I doing this right? And like, I hadn't read the API docs or anything. I was just kind of like going off of this script, and probably lucky, like I've seen people try rescues with no preparation and lose like millions of dollars. And so like thankfully this was, yeah, like this was only like $7,000. So the stakes weren't super high, but yeah, we had like, I had a team of 3 that I was working with, and we were all just like reviewing the code and just like trying to read as much as possible to make sure that we knew what we were doing. And it was actually April 1st when we executed the recovery. So it was like a great time for jokes. Like,
hey, we got your money. Oh, April Fools.
Exactly.
Oh man.
But yeah, no. We ran that. Everything went well. And so I posted that blog post about it, and then started talking to like the Flashbots white hat crew. So it was like, Scott was like leading the white hats, and like Robert and Alex were kind of like hanging out and helping like connect everybody. So I got a few more cases and like started making some money on the side doing that. And
nice.
like
Do they
just
pay you like
getting
a portion of saved or something?
yeah, it was like I was taking like 10% of whatever was recovered.
Oh yeah. Very nice.
So pretty decent money just doing like small 4 or 5 figure rescues. And then I just like started getting really into it. I started reading more about MEV and getting really excited about that. So I just talked to my employers, and I was just like, you know what, like I'm just gonna quit. Like this stuff is just too cool, and like we're not taking this like as seriously as I would want, because I was like, we should do more of this, like, you know, at my company that I was at. And they were like, yeah, there's just not a lot of money in it. And I was thinking more along the lines of like building infrastructure to like support white hats. And even like supporting white hats, I think was, you know, being a greenhorn, I was thinking pretty small scope. But
yeah, being in the early days, it's always small scope until you kind of like learn a lot more about the space, and then you get to see like what's missing, what's possible, etc. You're like, oh wait, I can build something here. You know, it'd be like big help. But I think that usually stems from like needing it yourself and then eventually building it. And if it was helpful for you, it'd probably be helpful for someone else, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just started like building in that space. I quit and just started doing white hat like full time to pay the bills. And I remember like the day I quit, I sent Burt Miller a message on Twitter, or maybe it was Discord, because we were still using Discord a lot at the time. And I was just like, yo, I quit my job and I want to work for Flashbots, but like give me like 3 months to like read and like experiment and just enjoy being unemployed for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then like I think it was way more than 3 months. It was like 6 months went by and I hadn't reached out. And then just like out of the blue, Scott sent me a DM. He's just like, hey, you still want to work for Flashbots?
Damn,
and like
living in his head rent free.
yeah, right. I was like, yeah. I was really enjoying like not working, but
yeah,
I was like, you know, this is gonna be dope. Like,
yeah,
I'm coming.
And then what was like the first things you really did in Flashbots?
Oh yeah, let me think. I think like one of the first projects that I was working on that didn't go anywhere, but I thought was pretty fun, was like this. It was like a GUI for self-recovery of like assets, so you could like do your own white hat rescue. Like one thing I noticed is like, you know, most of these people who get scammed, they do so by sharing their private key with somebody who's, you know, not looking out for them.
Yeah.
And so then like when they come to us, we're like, okay, we can help you. Just give us your private key.
Scammed again.
I'm like, yeah, man, this is like so antithetical to our whole mission. So I tried putting that together, but it turns out like these people who share their private key so willingly, they're pretty willing to share it again. Like they don't care.
Yeah, I've already lost so much. It's like just a gamble again. May as well make it all back.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like at Flashbots, we emphasize so much the importance of privacy and, you know, like security and self-custody and like, you know, all the great things about decentralization. Like it turns out like most people don't really care at all. They just like want it to work.
Yeah, real. I think, you know, it's kind of interesting with Flashbots about like decentralization, because like what we're seeing now is like only maybe like 5 or 4 or even 3 sometimes, depending on how many their percentage owned. But, you know, there's only like around 5 or less builders and maybe like 3 or 2 relayers that are really controlling the entire network. So is it really decentralized?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's less centralized for sure, but yeah, true decentralization, like I think what we're seeing now is it's the big meme right now is geographical decentralization. Is like even if you have 5 separate actors or agents and they're all in New York City, like if, you know, somebody takes out the power grid in New York City or something, it's like the network's down for the globe. So it's really about
you know, Rsync and Titan are both in the UK and they're the biggest ones. You know, like Titan had like 40% at one point, and it's always like a competition between them. Rsync is always at like 25%, blocks being built like constantly throughout this year. And it's like, oh, okay, so like 75% of the network belongs to them. They're building all the blocks.
Yeah.
And it's like, it makes you question, why would someone, choose to send their bundles to like those two over Flashbots, which is like, the original creators, and have like this vision of, decentralization, right? So, I mean, why would someone want to choose to send their bundles to Flashbots?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this, ties into the same theme that like people don't really care about the privacy guarantees. I think people are already pretty used to their information being public on Ethereum and just using the mempool. I think most people want to do is really like multiplex across all builders and just say, whichever one of you like puts me in a block fastest, that works. I don't really care if it's like, if Flashbots are like OVAC resistant or whatever. It's just like get it on the chain. That's all they care about.
Oh, like people just think about, which builder they send it to if they're in like MEV, really. It's not really like the average user is like, in this market condition, I should send to Titan, or this one I should do to rsync.
Yeah.
But totally. I think it should be like a standard though for people to send private transactions anyway, because like it's just in MetaMask, because everybody just gets wrecked when they go for Uniswap.
Yeah. So, I think like this is I think a big reason that a lot of people are focusing on intent architecture right now. Like CowSwap and Matcha and some others, they have like EIP 712 is like basically a form of intent, but it's like strictly centralizing. Like you have to have basically MetaMask, sign the message and give it to the web client. And they're responsible for delivering it, via their back channels to whatever network of executors. Like the user doesn't get any say in where that signed message actually goes.
Oh yeah, it's pretty big risk.
Yeah, but like obviously, like I think the biggest reason people actually care about privacy is just front running protection. And
you just get like MEV completely protection. Screwed. Because, like, especially when you're doing AMMs, right? Like on Sushi or Uni or any of those, exchanges, or even just like trying to be first into like a pool and like a master chef pool, like when something launches, like a generalized front runner just sees profit, steal transaction, your transaction fails, or you just get like completely wrecked from slippage, and they don't even know. It's like they're like, huh. My token's not what I put in. Turns out, totally. Jared from Subway came to give them a little visit.
Yeah, man. All vinegar.
Yeah, real. And you guys recently changed your builder to produce the most profitable block instead of guaranteeing like top of block execution in respect to gas. Why did you change to that?
Yeah, so I think the big reason. And like I don't work on the builder directly, just a disclaimer. So like I don't have the direct insight into the decision. Okay. But what I understand is the general idea is that like to win in the block space market, like you just you have to win blocks. Switching to a max profit algorithm simply wins more blocks. If we continue to guarantee top of block execution, generally we would lose out on more blocks landed.
You just wouldn't get aggregate more inclusion.
You just have to have more blocks. So max profit does a better job of that.
And this is because I'm pretty sure it's the relayers that select the most profitable block, right? Or is it the validator? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think technically it's the relayer. I mean, the relayer doesn't really have any. It shouldn't have any custom logic to select a block. It's just if you're running MEV Boost, a MEV Boost relayer, then it's just going to choose the most profitable block.
Well, what if they did do custom logic?
I think I think that's like I think we have that outlined in like a code of conduct or something.
Code of conduct. I mean, it's not like you're gonna audit their like relayer though. So how would you ever know?
Yeah, I think if a relayer was like, doing something mischievous, like it would be obvious. We wouldn't have to audit it. I think we would probably see it like much sooner than we would, have to. That then would like require an audit. Like there would be an obvious effect.
But like, what would if they were in like Afghanistan or some shit, or like somewhere where you don't have jurisdiction, like maybe actually not Afghanistan, probably like Russia or North Korea, and they've just like they're the main relayer, right? Let's just say like ultrasound money is in North Korea and blocks routes in Russia. That's like
Okay.
that's like 50% of all the blocks, being like I guess censored in some way. And if they made partnerships with a builder that's got the most like percentage of blocks being built from them, like right now Rsync is 34%, then Beaver Builder is like 23%. So if that number one like relayer paired up with the number one builder, or like I don't know, there's some like conglomerate and all teamed up in some way. They basically own the entire network.
To some extent, they own the builder market, right? But like as a validator, you still have the choice of which relays you connect to. So if you know, like as a validator, if you know that they're doing that, then you can just disconnect.
The slot auctions, you did a write up on them, and correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like you could remove the relayers completely, and then the block builders basically propose to the validators or something similar to that. It's like a terrific step in the right direction in terms of removing entry requirements to participate in this market, because nobody's gonna no normal person is gonna spin up a relay and maybe spin up a builder at the same time. Even just spinning up one of them is is an infrastructure problem, and you need money and like to host a server, and you need the expertise to like run one of these things and make it optimized so people use it. So I think it does lower the entry requirement, and so it makes decentralization much easier. But we'll see how that goes. I think that would be a pretty cool upgrade though, completely removing the relay. So there's no, what's it called? PBS?
Right.
Proposer builder separation. So I think that would be pretty cool, but who knows how that's going to kind of play out.
Yeah. I mean, it's like uncertain to me when that can happen. But yeah, the relay, as I understand it, was always designed to be an interim sort of role. Like it's really a bootstrap mechanism to connect. Yeah. I mean, to reduce the trust assumptions between builders and validators. Like you need some sort of intermediary to basically hold the block builders accountable for delivering the best block, and hold the validators accountable for choosing the best block. And so like that's what the relay does. And like if you could put that into code, like that's basically when people are talking about enshrining PBS into Ethereum, like that's sort of the goal there, is like replace it with some, protocol level code that does the same thing.
Okay, that makes sense. I wonder what would happen though if you did actually remove the relays. That'd be hard. I feel like, because it's kind of every builder is aggregated to like the relayers, and that's kind of determining what to send out and what to stop, etc. But if you just had builders, I wonder how that would work. I guess they would select all of them by default, but then you could like select a certain amount to accept.
Yeah, I think like if you had builders and validators directly connected, most likely validators would like set up some sort of MEV games. Like you send to a specific builder so that your MEV transactions are landing in their blocks, and then you only ever choose their blocks that give you MEV. And like that's not the most profitable block for the network, but it gives you the most money because you have like a dog in the race. Eventually every validator would catch on to that, and you'd have like basically the same problem that we had like with the mempool before. That like before it was validators, it was miners, and miners were doing MEV in their
miners.
Yeah. You do like you receive all the transactions from the mempool, and then you're building blocks locally, So
Mm.
you're like injecting MEV all over the block. And I think it would be like the same situation if you remove the relay.
How does like the block space like market kind of work? Because I think a most recent thing that you mentioned was in the post, the articles, is you can actually sell block space and people can buy that up and use it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's like that's sort of like a high level abstraction of
Okay.
like way to explain it. Like yeah, when you say I'm selling block space, it's just like saying I'm a builder and you can give me transactions and I'll put them in the block and
Ah,
like you pay me a fee and that's just like your gas fees. Yeah, so it's like
okay.
it's like a yeah, just an abstraction that's like makes it easier to talk about, but
Mm.
it's not like, oh, like here's this block space that we're auctioning off. It's like it doesn't feel like that when you're using it.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, in terms of that, where you're like selling in an auction, in that kind of environment, the person with the most money always wins. And so, like, what if some like HFT firm that like some billionaire came in and just always bought up the block space, and now he's just kind of cornered the market. Maybe
Yeah.
Jared does that, you know? Maybe he's just like giga rich. I mean, he is now, actually. I think it
Yeah.
was maybe like 5 mil a month or something, or 15. Can't remember
I
the
don't know.
amount.
Yeah, I heard some crazy figures. I saw like $1 million a day. I don't know if that's true, but like maybe
Oh,
for one
I
day.
think it was true, actually.
That's
But like,
insane.
it seems like that could be a possibility. Or, you know, a searcher teams up with a builder, and then the builder teams up with a relay, and now you have the entire chain of like, you know, entering the block, producing the block, sending the block, like the most
Yeah.
profitable one. And you know, they don't have to make profit to get like the most percentage. You could just like lose money and still like outbid everyone else that are trying to make money. So you
Yeah.
like purposely gain percentage by losing money. And like, you know, billionaires could definitely do that.
Yeah.
That's like a whole nother problem in itself. And it's like, how do you solve these?
Yeah. Well, I think that's not a huge problem just because of like basically just look at the incentive structure. Like if you're a billionaire and you want to buy up all the block space for whatever, like okay, you can do that and you can fill every block with whatever you want. Like there's actually a pretty funny example that I think it was a MEV refund on Twitter or maybe repost, like
Oh yeah.
RIPOSTE. He
Mm-hmm.
was I think he was screwing around with like MEV Boost on Gorley, and he managed to send a block and like take up the entire block, and it was completely empty, and all it just had like a graffiti on the block that just said, "This is my block. Go get your own block." It's like it was hilarious because it was like just a joke, but it was a proof that like you could completely own a block if you really wanted to. You just had to have enough money. You know, he had enough Gorley ETH to do it. It was like 12 ETH or something, but
Mm.
it's Gorley. Yeah, no big deal. But
I
like
think
if you wanted to do this on mainnet, like you'd have to have a really good reason to do so. Because
mm,
like if you're a lone actor, you have all these, MEV rich blocks to compete with. And like I think like the theory or the principle is that the more order flow you have and just the more traffic you're processing as a builder, the more valuable your blocks are going to be just because you have more opportunities for MEV. And so like to
mm,
compete with all of that MEV extraction and still produce the most profitable block, and this is like assuming that you stick inside MEV Boost. If you just ran your own validator solo, then yeah, you could just do this without having to worry about MEV Boost and just like propose your own blocks. But the opportunity would be much more rare, and like so
mm.
to land every block, you'd want to be in MEV Boost, and so then you'd have to like subsidize every block, and the cost is so high. It's like, for what are you doing? Like, if there's a really good reason and it makes you money, like okay, sure, but good luck like competing with all that MEV, like still coming
Yeah.
out profitable.
Yeah. On the topic of order flow, what can like an RPC provider do to monetize the order flow, and how valuable do you think like overall order flow is, or will be in the future?
Great question. Yeah, like RPCs are basically the entry point for all
Yeah. Yeah.
users, and so yeah, like controlling that is a pretty important position of power.
Hmm.
Um, as an RPC, you essentially have full control over the transaction and the signature. So a signed transaction, and
Yeah.
like you get to choose, where it's sent after you receive it. So whether that's like faithfully sent to a builder or whether it's like decoded and like mined for MEV information and discarded, it's like up to you, because there's no way of anybody else knowing what happened to it, because the message was delivered off channel, never touched the chain, never was gossiped. So like as the RPC provider, you have basically complete control before it lands on chain.
Yeah. Like the Infurer and I forget the other ones. I haven't used in so long. Alchemy, yeah. Like these people basically what all the normies are using. Like all the non-MEV people. It's like the entire like space, right? Or whatever MetaMask is connected to as well. Like you
Yeah, I
just
think
have
MetaMask
utter
is
power.
infra as well.
Yeah, it's just like you have utter power, and then I imagine like these RPCs would also track your IP. I know MetaMask does that. I recently found out.
No
all
surprise.
my Anon wallets are no longer Anon.
They never were.
They never were. It's like that meme, just the astronaut in the space.
Yeah.
If I were to run a node, theoretically, not saying I would, but like it is a possibility to track every IP and like put everyone in a database to some degree and being like, okay, what's this address doing? And it also makes you wonder, if people talk a lot about hacks and obviously the entry to do a hack is send to an RPC or, spin up your own node and gossip through that. But, there's always going to be the block builder you have to send to at least. So I think in terms of like, security in the space, do you think like app security would be less important than system security or network security in the terms of live detection and even like forensics as well? If you're tracking like IPs and you see like a hacker, you could find them, IRL them, unless they use, a VPN and like Tor or something. But
Yeah,
I think it would make it like one step easier in a sense.
Yeah, I think for sure, like it makes it one step easier. I mean, if you're a hacker, you're most likely never going to leak your IP, like your actual IP. But it's a
If you're
step in the
good.
right direction. Yeah. But yeah, I've heard a lot of projects doing like inline detection. What I mean is like, say there's like a module in MetaMask that like simulates a transaction, and you tell it or it analyzes or figures out somehow what is like intended and what's actually happening, and they'll like do this detection inline like before you send the transaction, which I thought was pretty cool. I think like there's a lot of things we can do at that like app layer.
Oh yeah.
To
The wallets that
privacy.
simulate and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think one of them was like the Fire wallet. I think that one was kind of doing that stuff of simulating and decoding like cold data and whatnot, or like the contracts. But I think the ultimate like wallet would have to be like be able to simulate, even do their like own exploit kind of or vulnerability detection on the contract, etc. Because people get wrecked from like rug pulls and whatnot anyway. So
yeah,
there's a lot of infra, awaiting. It's just
definitely
who's building it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are building wallets that address this, like in the pre-chain context. I've heard some pitches about systems that analyze like private mempool data and look for like opportunities that arise in like multiple transaction contexts. I'm explaining this bad. Like like opportunities that come out of like multiple transactions. Like if you have a bundle and the exploit doesn't trigger until the third transaction, like you wouldn't be able to see that in the single transaction inline sort of thing, but you could detect it as like, okay, the searcher is like exploiting this user by front running or back running them somehow. But then that introduces like a whole other host of security concerns, like a bot that just reads the private mempool all the time and like is aggregating data for its AI processor, constantly monitoring it. Somebody pitched that to us, and Like it was a cool idea in principle, but we were like hell no, that's not gonna happen. We're just
Mm,
gonna be collecting all this data and shipping it off. Like, no, we can't
mm.
do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a big thing that people are building now is like live transaction kind of hacks, like detection and prevention, kind of like insurance protocols. And it's kind of what I see in the cybersec area of automation is just they pair it up with AI. They train it on like, okay, what's the normal hack look like and what is kind of out of the norm. It's kind of, I mean, like MEV is technically hacking as well. Technically, it's like interchangeable words in my opinion. I guess you're not hacking to a degree of like millions, but it's the same. You can like argue the guy that did the mango exploit was just doing
Yeah.
like MEV, right? But
Yeah.
since it was so much money, they're like, oh, it's a hack or an exploit. But like everything else is kind of an exploit to some degree. You're just using the protocol. But I mean that whole kind of
Yeah.
like philosophy is, I guess, controversial. I've spoken to like a few lawyers about it, and it's like yeah, it's kind of a gray area. I think sandwiching is like illegal in the US now, or has been for a bit. But
Yeah, I think in traditional markets, like I don't know if they've implemented any like official laws for sandwiching on chain, but
mm,
it's yeah, like in the traditional finance context, it's definitely illegal. And I think like where like most people draw the line between hacking and MEV is just it's like based on a degree of exploitation. Like
mm,
the mango guy, it's he like dumped a bunch of money into a pool specifically to manipulate the price so that he could execute something else. And so it's like obvious market manipulation.
yeah,
Like
which is
there's no rational reason
illegal.
aside from like doing the hack to make that kind of trade. That's like it's not something that somebody would just do because they're trading. It's like clearly market manipulation. But if you're like, if you're backgrounding somebody because they caused the price shift and you want to do a little arb, like that's not manipulative at all. It's like more
Yeah, yeah,
corrective.
yeah, for
So
sure.
I think it's a good
Mm,
framing for that like debate.
mm. I mean, like Flashbots could definitely just collect data in general from the private mempool, and like even maybe unethical, but it could work towards like advancements of, I guess, hack prevention, because that's ultimately the reason why not like big players are not coming in, because there's the inherent risk of hacks. But then it's a question of like secure code, right? So
Let me ask you, like, what do you think about the debate of code is law?
uh I mean, I don't really have an opinion on it. I kind of like have taken my way outside of all of the building and stuff. So in cybersecurity, it's just like I want to hack. Well, I don't want to hack, but like I want to like be able to find an exploit, and then that's the kind of fun of it. But I don't know. Code is law. Exploiting a protocol is like taking money that's just out in the open, right? And that you can compare that to like a wallet on a bench. If you're in like the Middle East, you don't want to do that because legal implications, right? So you can look at it from that perspective, but other people also say it's like, oh, they built it, they should have known better. But the same is kind of with the wallet on the ground. Like, you're gonna take this guy's ID and his credit card. You should have known better.
Right. Yeah.
When you put it like side by side, it seems obvious. Sure, it's like that's the reality of it, but it doesn't mean it makes it okay to take all the money in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Ethic.
Yeah. Ethically, it does make sense. And I think just from a design standpoint, like from a software designer's perspective, like that's a shit take. Like there's no such thing as
Yeah,
perfect code, and I don't think there ever will be. Like it's just not something that we should strive for. Like people are gonna
yeah,
make mistakes and they're gonna write shitty code, and that's the way it's always been. And I think that's the way it's always gonna be. Like you can make your code better, but it's never gonna be perfect, and you're never
yeah.
gonna
I
find
mean,
every exploit.
there's human error, right? And that's like that would never be gone as long as a human is doing it. So there's always going to be something wrong or something you didn't think of, especially in the blockchain space where there's like this infinite possibilities of, a protocol comes out and you have your intended execution paths. How can you diverge from this? The possibilities of function sequences and call data inputs within each function sequence is just like infinite, and it's beyond our comprehension. So if you can't account for everything, there's something that you're going to miss, I feel like. Unless you make it very strict in terms of like, I guess, only within that protocol, or very strict checks, kind of like a Aave's flash loan. Like at the end of the flash loan, you got to pay it, like that kind of stuff. But that's the only thing I can really think of, because proxies are great to a degree because you can upgrade them, right? Like the implementation. But it's kind of a double-edged sword, being able to write software that's immutable to some degree, but that just puts a higher emphasis on security, and that's why like these researchers get paid so much, because there's a lot on the line in terms of reputation and money. Like you see these big protocols getting hacked for tens of millions, or even more. Like the bridges getting hacked for hundreds of millions, and the bridges you can kind of like change because it's a bit off chain, but the on-chain protocols, it's if you get hacked once and tens of millions are gone, your reputation as developer is over, especially if you're doxxed. Like, who's going to want to put their money back into someone that got hacked for tens of millions, right? I think it's a bit easier for anons because they can kind of ditch the identity and start a new one. But yeah, it's still not a good thing. So I think cybersecurity is like the biggest thing preventing like global adoption to something like a traditional markets, right? Because it's just the inherent risk of losing everything. If you're a firm putting a couple mil into a protocol to yield farm on like 5% interest or something, that's like a reputable like protocol. I imagine one day it just gets hit like 3 years later or something, and then all that money's gone.
Yeah,
I don't think people want to take that risk. How come you never got into searching? You've gone so far into Flashbots and you're very knowledgeable of all this stuff. So why not get into searching and start capitalizing on that knowledge in like the MEV world, or advising for other teams or whatnot?
Yeah, I think the biggest factor is just like the game itself it's just demanding. Like to compete really is like the challenge.
Oh yeah,
because it's like a lifestyle. I feel like
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's not just like I spend a couple weeks writing a good bot and I run it and then I'm set. It's like no, it's like I watch the chain every day and I'm like analyzing my competitors' bots and I'm making tweaks all the time. And it's just like every day it feels like every searcher I've talked to is sort of like in that mindset of like always on, always searching. Like honestly, like just don't want to do that. I enjoy like having dinner at 6 p.m.
Not worrying about someone overtaking you and you not making any more money.
Yeah. I do like, I'm really, intrigued by the scene and like the software. And so like I've written a bunch of bots just for like to prove the concept and like use them in like some experiments to like hindsight is a good example. Like I built this like bot that was based off of Rusty Sando that just removed the front run component. So instead of a sandwich bot, it's just a background bot
running. Yeah.
And like I just use that to like gather historical data, like, and that's just for data analysis for the data team. And it's like you're writing the same code, but like the game you're playing is totally different.
Yeah, definitely. It was interesting because I was reading that repo, and I think you mentioned that with hindsight, the historical MEV like strategy simulator, it's people are still leaving like money on the table after doing like an ARB or some kind of extraction, which is weird, right? Like, huh?
Yeah, well, most of what I noticed is like most opportunities just aren't being captured, and the ones that do, there's like basically two kinds of bots that are running on MEV right now. And I think the most dominant one is like on-chain searching. So like UniV2 to UniV2, you just do the, XY equals K, and
Yeah.
you can just calculate the perfect arb with like relatively low computation. And that's like, so this is like our simple blind arb bot that we have. And I think most people are running a strategy that's like similar to that. But then like Frankie from Paradigm, he's got, Artemis that has a UniV3 MEV share bot. It does like a probabilistic algorithm, but it's not really like based on heuristics. It's just like it's just a sweeping range of hard-coded arbs. And so like eventually, like every once in a while it will land one. But like, if you're completely guessing with no heuristics, it's going to be like pretty far off of the ideal arb. So that money's getting left on the table. And then like, I think just the searcher market is like, it's going, but it still hasn't hit that critical point of like all the MEV being captured.
Yeah, I think that's kind of impossible though, unless you have some generalized.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like never hit 100%.
Yeah. Unless I think the only way you can hit 100% is if you have some kind of like some automated analysis tool to like basically find every single combination from every single contract, every single function. That's the only way. And then you have to do that live as well, because when someone deploys a new contract, then you have to check that with every other contract.
Yeah, that's like an n factorial problem. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
Search space is impossible. But yeah, you never hit 100%, and just not only because it's like, even if you had a lot of historical data or whatever, like ways, algorithms to find new opportunities, like you still wouldn't necessarily have all the possible opportunities. And like, there's hacks and things that could be considered MEV rich that you'll never find. So like, yeah, we have like the way that hindsight evaluates it is like, it just restricts the search space like severely. So it just says like, if you're only talking to Uniswap and SushiSwap, what's the addressable MEV here? Because that's pretty easy to calculate.
Yeah, I think that's majority MEV as well in terms of short tail. Long tail, also maybe. I think it's either like an entry or exit point of like getting a specific token to interact with a protocol and then exiting that token after you do like the long tail.
Yeah.
But like, it could be wrong. They might just have their own like internal Oracle or liquidity pool, which isn't like embedded in Uni. Because an interesting thing with like the Uni as well is the like mini MEV game of like LP sniping. Whereas like when an LP comes up, all the bots like rush in to buy that LP before everyone else is. And then whoever's first basically makes a giant killing because they bought so early and now the price is inflated. They just sell it. But the funny thing is, there's like this counter MEV thing and in this MEV in general, whereas the people deploying the tokens, write custom tokens for the LP. So when the bots come in, they kind of just rug them.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a game within a game. And that's super interesting.
Yeah.
And they do like very highly customized. So like you can only buy after X amount of blocks or buy X, Y amount, or maybe only some addresses can buy or only EOAs. It's a whole game. And that stuff is super hard to analyze, I think, generally in a generalized sense, because you can move like a storage slot in a different, you can move a storage slot in a different slot. So if it does the same thing, like the reserves or the balance, you would just move it to like a different slot basically, and then you wouldn't know generalizing. You wouldn't know where it is, unless it's like you find some really good heuristics. But man, that'll be hard, I think.
Yeah, it's just impossible to know. So yeah, we just use like if we want to estimate the addressable MEV, we just say like, how does it compare to the baseline?
Yeah, I think on the dashboard of all the MEV, like the MEV tracker you guys use, or even what's that other company? It's like Eigenfi?
Yeah, Eigenfi.
Oh yeah, Eigen. Yeah. So they track like the long tail, no, not long tail, like short tail, I believe. But I mean, there's so much other MEV going on. It really doesn't display the true amount of money just lying down. Yeah, I remember watching like Burt Miller mention he found some long tail. And he was like, I can't remember, it was like a couple, like dozen grand, or close to 100 grand or something. This was a while ago, maybe 2 years ago. I was watching like this YouTube video of his, like one of his tutorials back in the day. Yeah, he mentioned like he found something and then maybe got front ran or something, but it was a lot of money. Longtail is very lucrative, but it's like kind of digging for gold, really.
Yeah, for sure. And like, yeah, that's why I call it long tail. It's just rare opportunities. And like, I think that's like probably the most appealing part of searching, like from a, I don't know, just from like a builder nerd perspective.
Yeah.
It's like, I found this thing that nobody else is seeing, and like I can capitalize on it. Once you have bots for the short tail, you're doing uni arbs and stuff. I think that's where most people gravitate, because the payoff is, orders of magnitude higher.
Yeah, I think it's just easier to kind of get into, like it's kind of like the de facto standard, like the hello world of MEV is like a shitty uni v2 R bot.
Yeah. Exactly.
that like loses money.
Yeah, so the gas wrong.
Yeah. I remember when I made my first one, it was like use a binary search, and I think that's why. I mean, you could do like some math to try and optimize the most optimal amount, but binary search was chill to begin with, but you weren't getting the specific, exact amount you could really extract. But it was still cool though. It was really exciting. This was a couple of years ago, but man, that was fun.
I remember when it was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2. It was like just before I had started at Flashbots, I found this video that I think Stefan and I don't remember who else was in, but it was titled "How to Make $1 Million a Month with MEV."
Oh yeah, I saw that as well.
And just like, yeah, what a great title. Like that's like one of the most popular videos that came out of Flashbots. It's like, of course, people love money.
It sounds like a scam, like one of those scam videos or like Uniswap bots on YouTube.
Yeah. I've been seeing those crop up lately. It's insane. I get like Discord DMs.
You need to turn the noties off, bro.
Of shit. Yeah.
But yeah, but like, it was such a crazy title.
Yeah, I know. I love it.
Flashbots is rugging the scammers.
Yeah, that's why we don't have a token, man. It's like, did, like, it would just be a nightmare.
Oh, I can imagine. I remember there was like gas tokens back in the day. I don't know if they still exist, but
oh yeah, I don't think they're useful anymore.
It'd be interesting, like account abstraction with MEV. I think that would be super interesting.
Yeah, that's a hot topic right now, and I think it's like going to be an increasingly hot topic over the next couple of years, is everybody's like talking about intents, and like a lot of architectures are shifting towards intent focus, or at least intent support. But yeah, like, it's really not any different than what we have now, except in the data format. I think like we're going to have basically the same systems that deliver transactions to a block. In an intent architecture, typically you have like solvers or executors.
Yeah.
Like Uniswap calls them fillers. And they're like, most likely their game is, bring your whatever intent to chain and then extract some MEV and like make it worth your while. Like you get paid a little fee, most likely, to execute in the first place, but you have it. It's your opportunity to background or whatever.
Imagine like someone just proposed like a little hack execution, like a little hack transaction of like multi-millions, and then someone else like filled it for them.
Yeah, it's like,
who's liable then?
No, that's a good question. I don't know.
The ones that executed it, I just proposed it.
Yeah. Like one of the things that comes up, like when you're talking to people about intents with like an executor network, people
Yeah.
ask, is it possible if I just make an intent that says, make me, turn this $10 into $100? I don't care how. Like the answer is yes, of course that's possible, but like who's reasonably going to fill that for you?
Oh yeah, imagine someone fat fingering and just giving you money.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, the
Or like
intent.
another exploit. I think a new attack vector in account abstraction would be like, I'm gonna make this exploit contract where it's the EOA that executes it actually approves their entire balance for me to use it and like send it to myself. Like ERC20 approved, but using account abstraction, someone else executes it with maybe like a balance, right? And then they would approve me to be able to send all their money to me. Like imagine that's a true attack vector if that's the case. Someone else executes it. That's
Well,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, as an executor, you have to like decode the intent and figure out what it's going to do. So, like
which is
your code should
yeah.
probably not like allow you to just drain your balance.
Like and this is when I think bytecode obfuscation and cold dot obfuscation will be like a major player in account abstraction. I can see so many people getting wrecked because they don't know how to decode or reverse engineer these contracts. I think it'll be a very niche market actually for the best ones.
Interesting. Niche market for who's
I
buying.
imagine just like the fillers that execute it, like you just pose so much risk. Unless like the normies do it, then they just get hacked, which I think would be a normal thing.
Sure, of course, yeah.
Because they're going to need ETH to execute everything, right? So they hold ETH, and I guess their algorithms would have to like check if they have, their money, right? But then they would also have to check each token and did they get approved or like wrecked in some way, something like that. There's a whole like bunch of stuff that's going to happen, I think, which I'm super keen to see.
Yeah. I've been doing a little research on intents and just intent architectures. I think like where a lot of designs are falling short at the moment is they're trying to like spec everything into the protocol. And I think they're bloating too much. I think intents in my mind work best when they're defined by an app. And like this is exactly what we have with smart contracts already. The app writes the code and you write the transaction that interacts with the app. And then intents just like abstract the execution path from the actual order. But it's the same problem. If you have an intent structure that very specifically lays out like how to lay out your intent, like how to handle swaps or how to handle NFTs or like whatever other things they come up with. Like if you add too much detail to the spec and like you don't let app developers customize how they want to verify their own intents, then like eventually it's just gonna be too confusing and there's gonna be too many attack vectors.
But I think it's a cool idea in general. Man, if you like send an intent there as like a black hat and you just generate a new wallet, right? That means you don't have to fund it, right? Someone else can fund it for you in terms of like executing the transaction, because then they can just flash loan and take money, make profit. I think someone did this, like 8bank or something a while ago. I forget the name, but they did this exact thing but with Flashbots, I think it was, with a bundle. But basically, like I think in account abstraction, someone can just pay for the gas of the transaction. They just flash loan to get more money, perform the exploit, pay back, and then they have more money. So now they're self-funded and someone else funded them basically. But yeah, there's gonna be like a whole new legal aspect with the intent stuff and account abstraction. But I'm pretty keen to see this all play out. Hopefully, it gets implemented soon.
Yeah, totally. It's an exciting space.
And you got to be prepared for that as well. Like you got to have the skills ready to be able to capitalize on that new opportunity. Because it's going to change the game, definitely.
For sure. But yeah, I think it's going to change the paradigm of searching. Not in the sense that you have to change your algorithms, but you just have to like basically just implement new interfaces. So it's like really not going to change the face. Well, it'll change the face, but it won't change like the body. It's a good metaphor.
I think actually as well in terms of like searching with account abstraction, like, what if you see a bunch of pending transactions in the account abstraction mempool or something, and then you like execute them in a specific order, and then you make a bundle out of that execution, you know, you're basically like choosing your own function. You're executing someone else's transaction in your own order. I guess it's like a bundle, but like a different form of bundling.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple of neat ideas, and then you can kind of create a bundle by executing someone else's transaction that was pending for a while. Maybe it was pending for like a day or something.
Yeah, that's totally possible. And I think people are actually like they want features like that. Yeah, like for instance, like a day-long limit order. Like you can't do that on MEV Share right now because our RPC endpoint has a 25 block period. And so if your transaction isn't included after 25 blocks, it's just discarded. But we've had people ask for, features where we could just put a transaction in the private mempool for days and like don't consider it until somebody tries to backrun it. Don't start the timer until people are actually trying to put it in a bundle.
Yeah, I'm keen to see how this all plays out, but I'm sure we'll have another chat when that happens. It'll be a whole new game with Flashbots.
Flashbots is all about new games.
So we love the game theory and doing all this stuff. But yeah, thanks so much, Brock, for jumping on. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'm sure a lot of people would take interest in this as well. Talk about a bunch of technical things, and I think that's where the bread and butter is, especially in this space.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, thanks so much for jumping on. We'll definitely chat again when you're on.
Cool, man. Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you coming on, and take care.
All right, you too. Adios.
Adios.